Okay, so I want to talk about purging and uh, and basically uh, fixing the electronic ballots and even paper ballots uh, and write-in, and all that other stuff done by the Democrats and the Republicans, and not just for the presidential race, but in the midterm race, this recent past midterm race. Democracy Now! had a great uh, a great video which you can find done by an independent journalist uh, who also works with another independent journalist called Greg Pallas, and you can find him on YouTube. And they and a few others uh, have been on a crusade to uncover all these criminal actions. And so, anyways, the Intercept also has done pieces on this. So, but Democracy Now! Is just the most recent one, and as I said, you can find it on YouTube, and it explains exactly how it's being done and what parameters that they do this rigging and fixing, and how it is often done right, like just a few the night before the announcements for who won. So I want people to understand. Back in 2016, there were, I believe, like 6 or 7 Republicans who ran. So this argument that that if you have too many running, that you'll bleed off votes, and you'll lose you'll spread out the votes too much, and but that's not what happened in 2016. Trump got the majority of the Republicans, even though there was a lot of Republicans running in 2016. So that whole crap with Bernie and Jill Stein and if you that's just complete bullshit. And this joker named Nate Silver, who talks about all this crap, and he's completely wrong. The reason why in the midterms we had so many full progressives and establishment candidates win is because the votes were fixed and they were rigged, and the people that should have won. So rather than having just Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and other freshman candidates that got into office, we should have had dozens more. But that's not what happened. And this is something I've covered before, is that too often the incumbent and the establishment candidates win, and it can't possibly be. It's got to be more than all the other fluff that they put out, and this only confirms what I've been saying for years. Going back to my late teens and into the 20s and 30s, and all the way up to the present, because there's just no way. There's just no way in hell that could be possible. So I keep calling the DNC and the DCC and all the other outfits of the capital big letter Democrats. They've been fixing it. They've been rigging it. Uh, the and the Republicans have been doing the same thing. So, one of the things that Democracy Now! Talked about in that particular story was uh, how it was possible that the Republicans actually gained seats on the Senate, when in fact these guys got in because it was rigged on the night before the official announcement. So, and the same thing with the Democrats. So it's so what we have, and I keep saying this, we've had an illegitimate Senate and Congress, and illegitimate presidents for a very long time. Barack Obama is probably Barack Obama and Bill Clinton are probably the only ones who actually legitimately got into the presidency. The other ones, all the other ones were not, in fact, legitimate. So, and you have to watch the Democracy Now! Video to understand why I'm saying this, because there's a certain margin when they do the exit polls and all, and they do other stuff. So there's a certain margin. Like if there's a low percentage if there's a low enough percentage of a differentiation, such as the 3 million recently with the Trump one. But if we go back, Al Gore got 3 million more votes, popular votes over Bush, and he lost the election, and that has to do with the percentages I'm talking about, and because of the thing that allows certain people to decide that to overrule the popular vote. So that's a sort of crap that's been happening. But as the interview in Democracy Now! And done by also investigations by Greg Palast, and I forget the gentleman that works with Greg Palast, that who's worked with not works but worked with Greg Palast and done investigations. He's said basically it happens in senatorial races, in House races, both state, federal, and local. So what I knew deep down has been taking place for almost all of my life, and I've suspected it for a good portion of my life, is actually happening, and it's because of what I observed, what I knew about the social situation, me personally, and for others. So it was. I came to a logical conclusion that there had to be some form of fixing, that to allow criminals to hold the seats and basically to bring about all these legislation and policies that are completely illegitimate, because they go against. They go directly against the U.S. Population. So, anyways, that's it. So there is a reason why we have what we have. It's because the system has been rigged, and because we have given too much deference and too much ethics and morality towards our politicians and the businesses and the media. And even though, and I'm positive there are many who saw these inconsistencies and all these things and felt it in our own personal lives, we, we were kept on being told by the media, oh, it's conspiracy theory this, conspiracy theory this, and conspiracy. So, we didn't want to. We imbibed and ingested it and took it as conspiratorial, but it wasn't conspiratorial. It was actually happening in real life, and there were indications through television shows and and books and certain independent journalists, investigative journalists that were pointing this out. But we bought the mainstream narrative. So understand, we have not had a legitimately elected people for a very long time. So do what you will with this information. Call it conspiracy, call it whatever you want. But if you find that it's true in your own personal lives, and you can think back on how it's personally affected you, your family, your friends, and whatnot, then it makes perfect sense because it's happening. Because it's been happening. You might not have actually come to that conclusion, but you knew there was something wrong. And I think the vast majority of Americans can say they know something was wrong. Well, that's what was wrong. That's why we have the militaristic mercenary law enforcement. That's why we have a mercenary or organized organized crime judicial system. That's where all the inequities are coming from. That's why we have racial tension. That's why we have economic inequality. That's why we have all these instabilities. That's why our infrastructure is not great. That's why we have climate change. That's why we have a constant increase in the stuff that we buy, such as food and furniture and cars and gas and everything. Why we have all that, but our dollar, our buying power has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk, so that we have to try to budget, but that budgeting is getting tougher and tougher, and we've been told by the media for decades upon decades, that it's our greed, it's our stupidity, it's our we don't budget properly, we don't consider the future, we just we just spendaholics and so on and so forth, and I think many of you remember all this, and put that together with everything else, and voila, you have your answer. And it's not just elected political elected officials, but it's also the ones that are appointed to official positions who are in it. And so this is something a lot of people on the left have been saying, and it's not a left issue. I believe firmly, because that's what the indications, that's what all the observations, all the impacts to me personally, and I know it impacts a dozen of other people that I know personally, that the corporations and the ultra rich have hijacked the system. They're committing treason and sedition, and that is basically making us nothing more than commodities, and and one big gigantic piggy bank which they can dip their hands in willy nilly. And none of them have ever faced true consequences, and that true consequences is jail. We have Americans being put to death and sent to jail for we got Americans being put to death for manslaughter. We have Americans being put to death because who are innocent. They're accused of murder, but they never committed murder. And so we have innocents being put in jail. We have innocents being put to death, and yet the true monstrous criminals are walking around free. I mean, you got Elliot Abrams, who was a convicted felon, who's involved in the Iran-Contra affair, who orchestrated making sure to keep the massacres done in South America out, or is it South or Central America, out of the population. So there was a media and other cover up. So John Bolton, he's a capital criminal. Clinton is a capital criminal. Bush is a capital criminal. Al Gore is a criminal, but he's not a capital criminal. But and Obama is a criminal. Reagan was a criminal, and you have all these criminals getting like you got the Reagan International Airport. They're getting monuments and credit and being turned into heroes. You had David Duke. The fucking guy is a criminal and a racist criminal at that. Yet he was able to hold political position. I mean, he was the head of the KKK at one point. So this is the sort of stuff that's going on. And you have Steve Mnuchin. Guy is an abject criminal. He owned or was part of Countrywide and another financial mortgage pyramid scheme, which impacted millions of people losing their homes, as well as their savings. Yet he's in the president's in the president's administration. You have that other peon, along with what's his name, who was the head of Breitbart, and then was in Trump's administration, as well as being his campaign manager. And then now he's running around Europe doing nationalism and racism and fascism and promoting that crap. Unfortunately, I can't remember. Oh, Steve Bannon. He was a Goldman Sachs. He was Goldman Sachs. He helped to cause the 2008 crash. He did the same sort of crap that Mnuchin did. Not only that, but he was also involved with hedge funds. The guy personally knew that pedophile. What's his name? The one that had a pedophile ring. That the Miami Herald or Miami something wrote about. It's like, and that guy. So understand, I always say this, it is always the people with legitimacy always the people with political positions and money positions and class positions who do the crime that the rest of America can't get away with and often pay for when they haven't done anything. And at the same time, we're being robbed, pillaged, plundered, murdered, raped, and so on and so forth. In all in physical ways and metaphorical ways. So I did a video, but I but I was I got a little carried away, and I was espousing some sentiment out of my outrage and anger about the 2020. And I won't get into it, but let's just say I went a little too radical, and I deleted it before I could post it. Oh, I'm sorry, no, I posted it, but I deleted it afterwards. Fortunately, I had done something that made it so that several for some time it went to private viewing and not public viewing. So the thing is will we stand up for this? The consequences is that Americans are dying by our quote unquote law enforcement and police who are being shot left and right, and they're bitching, and not only that, but they're making statements sounding like saying that rabble rousers and instigators will be we will crack down on them and we will arrest them. We will send the SWAT teams and so on and so forth. And you got the similar things coming out of New York City with the mayor, I believe, or if not the mayor, the governor. And so you got and because police are being shot, and the police are being shot because they're acting like criminal killers. And so, people have been pointing this out and saying, hey, stop killing us, actually preserve and protect, and maybe this wouldn't happen. Stop allowing criminals with badges to go around shooting us and then getting away with it. And, stop targeting us because of our color of our skin. And they're talking about how prosecutors and DAs aren't serving out equal justice for the same fucking crimes, and giving leeway to done by the same crimes, but giving leeway to some people with white skin, white Americans. And, this is the sort of stuff. So people are going to get angry. People are going to get frightened. People are going to be getting afraid. And what we have is a fascist fascist takeover. And fascism has been alive and well for over 40 years in this country. People don't seem to understand. Fascism doesn't have anything to do with violence. Fascism has to do with having massive wealth and political power. So it's the merger of the corporate and moneyed and corporate with the political. And that's fascism. The fact that within fascism, that violence and oppression and suppression and inequality rises, that's just an offshoot of what happens. And capitalism is the founding measure into fascism. So understand what's going on.